Apologies, I thought we had a sequential presentation, but we've got two up together. So I'd like to also introduce Janelle Hearn. And Janelle is the Manager of Worker Health and Wellbeing, Department of Health and Human Services. And Janelle and Patrice will do a tag team presentation. Thank you.
Good morning and thanks for having me. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present and any who might be with us today. Janelle and I are going to start the day by showcasing the Occupational Violence and Aggression in Healthcare campaign that was launched 3 weeks ago. Many of you will have already seen the ads on TV and may have also been involved in some activities within your own health service in relation to the campaign. We thought it'd be a great opportunity to take you through how the campaign came about and the process we went through to get to the end product, which we're really proud of, and we're hoping will have a significant impact. This is the first time that WorkSafe, the Department of Health and Ambulance Victoria have worked together on a campaign like this, and it's been a really successful collaboration. Do I have a... Yep. Just waiting for the presentation.
Can I have some help with that link, please? There you go.
And do I just do that? Okay. So, by way of background, we know that occupational violence and aggression in healthcare is a major occupational health and safety issue. The research suggests that up to 95% of healthcare workers have experienced it, but only 1 in 5 or 20% report it. OVA claims in healthcare are on the rise. So in 2005, 18% of all OVA claims were from healthcare, and in 2014 that increased to 25%. And we also know that healthcare workers are 4.7 times more likely to lodge an OVA claim than other workers. And we also know that there was a recommendation in the 2015 Auditor General's Occupational Violence Against Healthcare Workers report that the Department of Health, WorkSafe and Ambulance Victoria should work together to develop public messaging to improve community awareness regarding the impact of OVA on healthcare workers and the need for appropriate and respectful behaviours towards our healthcare workers. Throughout the development of the process, we've undertaken significant stakeholder consultation. 2 key groups of stakeholders were utilised for this consultation: the Department of Health's Violence in Healthcare Reference Group, of which some of you might actually be on, and also the WorkSafe Health Practice Stakeholder Working Group. There was a broad range of expertise represented in these groups, which included health services, unions and other employer group representatives. Stakeholders have been involved from the very beginning in providing initial insights into the problem, and then all along the way, including having input into the campaign objectives, the creative concept and the ads and the other campaign and communication materials. So we're confident we have a great product thanks to the insights and feedback provided to us by stakeholders, and we've had a really successful start to the campaign. As with all WorkSafe campaigns, extensive research goes into the campaign before development even commences. So this included working with our research partners, the Institute of Safety, Compensation and Recovery Research, to do a literature review and data analysis. And some of the data I talked about just earlier has come out of that research. There was also qualitative in-depth interviews undertaken with healthcare workers, and lots of stakeholder meetings, including the initial insights that I talked about earlier. So this research then provides the basis of the campaign objectives and where what it eventually looks like. So the campaign research identified there's a spectrum of violence and aggression that occurs from the lower levels of aggressive gestures like eye rolling, sneering, through yelling, intimidation, and up to the physical end of biting, hitting, scratching, punching and strangulation. And whilst it's obvious the effects that the more extreme acts of violence can have, it's important to note that the cumulative effects of the behaviours at the lower end of the spectrum, when it's repeatedly experienced, can also have a significant impact on people's health and well-being. So for the campaign, we want the general public, as well as healthcare workers and employers, to believe that none of this behaviour is acceptable, not just the behaviour at the extreme ends of the spectrum. The campaign research also showed a continuum of acceptance. So healthcare workers are more accepting of occupational violence and aggression from people with cognitive impairment like dementia or mental health conditions, and much less accepting of those that are from people who are really just nasty or just trying to use aggression to get what they want. So it was determined that the greatest, and at both ends of those spectrums, it was determined that a public awareness campaign would not have as much impact as what as the part of the spectrum which is around people under stress. So that's what, if you've seen the ads, that's what the ads have actually focused on. But we know that preventing OVA across the board, across this whole spectrum, is essential. And so even though the ads focus on people under stress in scenario, all the campaign tools and materials that have been developed to go with it are focusing on prevention across the board. So some other research, the comments from the interviews in the focus group showed that the community comments were around things like people who OVA are not like me, this stuff doesn't happen that often, and getting yelled at isn't that bad. From workers, it was about them expressing that they accept it as part of their job and they need to look after the patient first, that they don't report it because it's too hard and often it's not followed up by their employers. And for employers, it came out that around following up on reports is what they need to do, valuing the staff, and sometimes when they might have zero tolerance policies in place, but that's not necessarily followed through and enacted. So all of that research fed into what the objectives of the campaign are about, and so they're about three things: increasing awareness that OVA against healthcare workers happens. This is aimed at the general community who don't recognise the extent of the problem yet. The other objectives around changing attitudes so that it's not seen as part of the job, and this is for everyone, the general community, healthcare workers and employers. We need a shift within the sector and as well as within the broader community. And lastly, it's about generating action. The end goal is about behaviour change, and for the community this is about stopping the behaviour. For workers it's about reporting the behaviour, and for employers it's about preventing it. So we'll go on and show you the ads. Most of you probably have seen them, but we'll show you the ads now.
I work in aged care to give elderly people the care, emotional support and companionship they need. I care for your loved ones, your mothers, fathers, husbands, wives and grandparents. And this is how you treat me?
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
So that's the aged care ad. This is the nurse ad.
I'm here to help when you need it most. Coordinating your care, listening to and supporting you and your loved ones through your recovery. And this is how you treat me?
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
And
As a paramedic, I help in life-threatening situations. Seizures, drownings, babies on the way, or who've stopped breathing. It's my passion. In an emergency, I'm here for you. And this is how you treat me.
Up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault. No matter what the situation, it's never okay.
So we think they're pretty powerful, and I think the message we're getting through all the social media and the media is showing that that's pretty much what everyone is thinking. So these are just some stills. So I'm going to hand over to Janelle to talk to you more about all the other campaign materials, but these are stills that are on posters, they're on billboards, and on some outdoor, other outdoor advertising like the buses and tram stops. So Janelle's going to talk a bit more about what else is there.
So in the development of this this campaign, we met with different focus groups. So that included the workers, so including nurses, paramedics, aged care workers, and also the community. And they were split into two groups: the unlikely to commit OVA and also the likely to commit OVA. And so as we were testing these, we tested the campaign objectives, and they scored very highly with these groups. So the 3 campaign objectives: to increase awareness that OVA in the healthcare sector happens, scored a 9 out of 10, as did the increases to the belief that OVA is not part of the job, and these were across all 3 of the groups, as well as the belief that both the extreme acts of violence and the yelling and threatening of people, making aggressive gestures, is all unacceptable. And I guess some of the discussions in the group were, I guess particularly in the community groups, really unaware that this was a problem, that this happened, that that healthcare workers had to deal with this every day. So. Now the other sorts of media channels, it'll be in TV, metro and regional cinemas, radio, you may have heard it yourselves, and out of home, so in the bus panels, so side of the buses, tram and bus stops, near hospitals, and also online. So if people are accessing social media and in hospitals as well, then it's more likely obviously to come up as well in their social media. So employer resources, so there's all the CEOs, OHS managers, nursing was sent through some emails over the last 2 weeks when it came out, and also there's hard copy packs going out to each hospital now as well, and they include a letter from the department, a suggestion about what you can do next with the campaign materials, a brochure with the key messages, and a case study booklet. And we thank, there's a number of people in the room that have shared their case studies, so thank you for those. And also some posters for staff and community. But there's also all of these resources that can also be accessed via the campaign website, so I'll show you that in a second. Also in the packs is the organisational response framework that the department has recently released, and I'll talk about that in my next presentation. So the staff posters, that's an example of what they look like, and there's an opportunity to put down your own individual way that you report in that little box there. And the small wording that you probably can't read very well is up to 95% of our healthcare workers have experienced verbal or physical assault, but these incidents are currently chronically underreported. Aggression and violence is never okay. Report to your employer so together we can work towards reducing these incidents and stop it happening to you and your colleagues again. That's an example of the brochures and case studies I was talking about. And there is also a link in the materials, not the actual WorkSafe guidance, because it's a pretty big, thick, heavy document, but you can download those, and it shows you where to go to on the WorkSafe website about their refreshed guidance on occupational violence and aggression. There's also communications toolkit, so there's materials that will help you in your health service to either use the images, there's still images, so you can use it in the different ways you'd like to in your health service. There's a PowerPoint template so that you can present it to your different teams or staff. E-newsletter articles so that you've already got the copy to use within your own articles, and your email signature block. So all of that can be downloaded on the campaign website. So now for the campaign website. So It's on the WorkSafe website, and you've got all those details in your little goodie bags today for the link. And you'll notice down the bottom that you can order more of those hard copy materials. Some will be coming to your health service, but also we understand that you probably need more, and obviously they'll be posted out to you, so you can order what you need. Okay, I'll finish up there, and I think we're holding questions to the end of this section.
That's okay with it, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Patrice and Janelle, for presenting that information about the campaign. It just makes you jump when you see that stuff, doesn't it? And I know that's something that people are seeing in the workplace all the time, but the ads are quite confronting, really. We've got an opportunity now to ask any questions or make any comments about the presentations that Patrice and Janelle have just made. I'd just like to remind the people from rural Victoria that you're very much a part of this session, and you're very welcome to put forward your questions or comments at this point, and there'll be somebody to receive them and to bring them into the discussions. We've got 2 fixed microphones here, and we're going to be inviting people to come forward to the microphones to ask your questions or make your comments. So please feel free to just stand up and walk forward, and if you need to just take your place there at the standing mic and put forward your questions to Patrice or Janelle. So we've got a first taker over here, and if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Of course. My name is Dr. Ernie Gomberg. I'm one of the neurosurgical registrars at the Alfred. Thank you very much for the talk. There's a lot of people here. I know that to some degree it pleases all of us to see these people, and in my opinion it's quite on the contrary. It just means how bad is the problem that so many people came here from such far distance. What I want to say, if you don't mind, and that is, I noticed your presentation, and please don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that finally this issue is brought to people's attention. My wife is a nurse, and whilst I can handle some violence, I certainly don't want my wife to be in that situation, because I don't think we can all handle violence equally, and I think some of the violence, or any violence, is inappropriate. But here's the reality. As a neurosurgical registrar, you probably would be aware that one of my colleagues that came out in the news not that long ago was the first one to be stabbed in a foyer, as far as I can remember, in Victoria. Everyone here, I'm sure, remember that was all over the media. I remember it very well. And I also saw his painful recovery since then. And I also saw how the media quiets down after that. And I also saw the reports that came after that. But here is the sad reality. About a month ago, we also know that we received a patient. In fact, I was on call that night. Okay? And that patient, as we know, months later has passed away, and my condolences to his family. And I was on call again that night that he passed away. And then within that month, 30 days that he was managed, we have here one of the nurse in charges on the wards ran to a code grey, 7 code greys in fact, on one of the ward patients that was very difficult to manage. In fact, he was very easy to manage in ED. He was unconscious. We took out his acute subdural, and then he was very hard to manage, but on the ward. No CCTV. The security didn't arrive every time within the time that we want. Is my safety guaranteed? And what about my wife? If she runs to the code grey, what about my nurses? If they run to the code grey, are their security guaranteed? What I want to know with this campaign is, I understand that you have focus groups, but what I don't see in those focus groups is those people that are going to sit and have a look around with us at night shift, average night shift, 7 code greys. Who assures my safety over the last months? Am I going to be the next one that we're going to stand a minute silence here and somebody will tell my wife the same news that I had to unfortunately tell somebody else?
Sorry,
I'll just ask my question.
Yes, please.
whilst all of these media campaigns perceived to be to some degree effective, perceived, as a person right there on the ground, I can tell you that they're not received by the people that perpetuate violence. And that is a remark that may hurt people here, perhaps, because there's a lot of hard work that went into that. But it is the truth, because over the months, 3 weeks, I think you correctly pointed out that they were running, I had, as I said, night after night, more and more violence. And that violence could have ended up in the same result. And so if we're going to stand here and pretend like it's not, then we should probably walk out of here. What I want to suggest to the crowd here is that we don't, number one. Number two, that we don't just look at the emergency department, because that does not prevent both of those cases, whilst I have to say the emergency cops did a lot. Number three, that we need to match the security with the amount of incidents in every hospital, and we need to do it pretty soon, because I'm going to start at some point refusing to walk into code grey until somebody can tell me that my safety or my wife's safety is assured. Not just that, not a slogan at the end of some corridor, but assured. Because if somebody wants to tell me that I need to manage a patient appropriately, first and foremost, I need to be safe when I come in there. And then we should legally be protected to say that sometimes I don't want my staff to get hurt. And the decisions that I make, like, for example, giving sedatives to a patient day 0 after a craniotomy, are such that are not in the best interest of a patient as a general rule. But who is there to protect me if there is no CCTV? It's my word against theirs. I want you guys to reflect on that, please, in this forum.
Thank you very much for that question. And thank you for, I can imagine that those experiences that you're portraying have been horrendous for you and the teams working with you in your professional career. So thank you for sharing it with us. It puts it into stark reality. How do we make sure this campaign or the package of initiatives, because it's not just the campaign, how do we make sure that the whole package of initiatives creates sustainable change? How do we make sure at the end of the day, when there is a conflict between staff safety and patient care, how is that resolved? So perhaps we'll start with those two questions, and perhaps Janelle, you might like to kick off.
So probably my next presentation, I think, around the department's work, and certainly acknowledge that this is only one aspect of this work, and I think we know that a really multifaceted approach is needed, and it's not one solution. So, you know, putting in one thing is not going to make the significant change. It's working all of these things out together. So the awareness campaign is one approach, and it should sit alongside all the other work that is going on. And that's really about increasing the awareness to the public, and we know that that's only going to have an impact or a potential impact for, you know, a set group of people, and it's not going to solve all of the problems, but it's really about how that can work together to increase awareness while we are committing extra resources to security, while we are working to improve the CCTV, the physical environment, improving training and those resources as well. So I think it is about all of those things working together to really help to prevent and to improve the safety, and so that you can go to work and feel that you are safe and that your employer supports you to be safe at work.
Thanks, Janelle. Patrice, any comments from you?
I'll probably just reiterate what Janelle's saying. There is a lot of other work going on. Acknowledge that what you're saying is real, and I think that's what's led to, you know, the collaboration between WorkSafe Ambulance and the department. There is, and I think Janelle's right. She will be telling you all the other work that is actually going on, which is about action. You're right. The campaign and ads can look flashy, but we will be evaluating what comes out of that as well. This will be an ongoing campaign. It's not going to be a one-off and we'll evaluate. WorkSafe will continue to work with the department and work to try and generate action. We're out there, from a WorkSafe perspective, we're out there doing visits at the moment, specifically on occupational violence, and so there is a lot of work going on. And I think today's part of trying to share that, to try and I think it's everyone's responsibility. Everyone has to start working on this, including people who are experiencing this, making sure they're reporting it. If only 1 in 5 people are reporting it, then within a health service you may not even realise how big the problem is. So I think that's where it starts from a worker perspective.
Okay, thanks Patrice and Janelle. In the absence of any other questions at this point, we might move on to hear from Janelle about the overall hospital strategy. Can I ask you to thank Patrice and Janelle for that initial presentation?